Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolebarger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update. It's the week of July 8th, and before I even get started in this, let me remind you, go to our website, Holy Ground Explorations, click the blog button, and you will see the PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this YouTube presentation. And you want to see this because of the pictures that are attached to these articles. And then just as a reminder that this presentation attempts to bring the Middle East into focus through Israeli lenses. We want you to see the Middle East through those that are living in Israel today. So all of our material is really through Israeli news agencies or folks that we know in Israel. With that being said, this first slide talks about Israeli issues. Listen carefully. As we know, last week, Halal Yafa Ariel, a 13-year-old Jewish girl, was killed in her sleep. And with that being said, I want you to understand why I'm so passionate about speaking out against anti-Semitism. This was from a Danish Facebook user who wrote, "Now there's one less of them." This user wrote gleefully after this 13-year-old Jewish girl was stabbed to death in her sleep in her bedroom by a Palestinian man. He thought that this heinous, cowardly murder of an innocent child in her sleep was simply a part of the resistance against the occupying Zionists. By the way, a side note, Halal Yafa Ariel was a U.S. citizen. Have you? I haven't. Have you heard President Obama condemn this act of terror publicly? I wonder why. Well, the mindset from Israel, waiting for the world to condemn and pay lip service to Israel's fight against terrorism, is a dead end in every sense of the word. It will never happen. It didn't happen even on 9/11 when the world was most likely to understand what Israel was actually facing. And the thought that maybe the solidarity of the world would be turned against Islamic terrorism after 15 years. Now, the whole concept of political correctness and a jaded sense that this is just the new normal has eroded any hopes that this worldwide condemnation against Islamic terrorism would be spoken. Well, the bottom line is this: Israel must fight terror as it sees fit in order to end the attacks, to end the killings of children in their sleep, to end pedestrians being killed on their way to the supermarkets. Israel is a sovereign nation. Israel does not need the world's permission to defend itself against those who seek its destruction. And then we have Ramadan, and we have all the different events that has transpired. At the end of Ramadan comes what's called the Al-Quds March Parade. And we'll give you a snapshot of both of these. In England, by the way, the picture shows the flags of Hezbollah being flown outright publicly on the streets of London. Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda flags being waved during the march. And once again, this is England. We'll get to Iran in a second. It's this festival that's turned into a festival of incitement against who? Against Israel. And then we have the whole event of lovable Iran. You have to see these pictures. Of course, the march culminates in tens of thousands of people chanting "Death to America" and death to Israel. And the burning of Israeli flags and American flags, and specifically the Statue of Liberty with the Star of David connected to it. And this is what we're supposed to believe as our so-called peace partner in the Middle East. Tens of thousands of people were marching in the capital of Tehran. And again, at the end of it, the lieutenant commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard specifically said, Israel, you must know that there are tens of thousands of missiles that are located throughout the Middle East that are ready to strike Israel at a moment's notice. Remember, see these pictures. And then last week, one of these rockets was actually launched from Gaza into Sderot. Israel did retaliate. There's been retaliations in Syria as well, with some sort of border issues on the Golan. Israel is on alert. Not one rocket will be launched that will not be reciprocated by Israel. And by the way, this Iron Dome that Israel possesses, there's even something more effective than the Iron Dome, and I think it's the angelic dome. God knows. God knows, and Israel is in the middle of all of this, and Israel will remain. God is not finished with Israel. Amen? Well, back to Sderot. As you can see the pictures. And again, the only reason I want to touch on this, it's not like out of the ordinary to say that rockets fell in Sderot. You have to understand as you read the article that Hamas will target schools for young children. That's where they can do the most damage, and that's where they infuse fear. That's the nature of terrorism. And this children's center that was in the center of Sderot was seriously damaged, and yet within a couple days, and this is the Israeli spirit, refurbished, reopened, because Israel will not allow the threat of terrorism to overcome their resistance, their life. And so it's open once again. But as I mentioned, the reason I wanted to bring this up is simply this. Look what Israel got in return for when they handed over Gaza to the Palestinians. Within moments, Hamas takes over, right? And what do they get in return? Tens of thousands of rockets. At least 3 incursions or operations or wars. And so, in the midst of all this, what is the world saying to Israel today? You need to give up the West Bank. And what will Israel get in return if they give up the West Bank? Rockets? Rockets from overlooks of Ben Gurion Airport? Rockets coming from Ramallah, not more than 10 miles away from Jerusalem? Seriously. This is what the world is asking for. Well, I call this next one Merry Ramadan. We need to take a look at what's actually transpired over the last month. Specifically last week, 3 suicide bombers struck in 3 cities across Saudi Arabia, killing at least 4 security officers in a coordinated campaign attacks against the Saudis. And, the targets were U.S. diplomats, Shiite worshipers. The bottom line is whether it's Turkey, Orlando, Bangladesh, Iraq. Take a look at what's happened during Ramadan. It has one common denominator: sheer terror by Islamic terrorists. That's what's taking place. And somehow we think that there's a way that we can somehow come to the negotiation tables and give things up in order for peace. Do you hear the chants in the background? Do you see the flags being burned? Do you see the Statue of Liberty? What are you hearing? Death to America, death to Israel. We need to continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem as believers today. And then, on a sad note, and really we'll end with this because it's a challenge. Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel died last week. And you'll see the pictures, but the quote from, if you've never read the book Night, you need to read that book. We need to take a stand that this can never happen again. But Elie's quote, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor. It never helps the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Once again, friends, it's time for us to take a stand, to be the sons of Issachar that understand the times that we're living in and to rise up and to do something. One of the things that we can do is that we can make a concerted effort to pray. It is a powerful weapon against the enemy. You'll also see in the PDFs Torah gleanings from this week's Torah portions, as well as some quotable quotes. And I'll end with the quote from Naphtali Bennett for this week. How can we expect the world to speak in our favor and win for us if we don't do so for ourselves? If we stand up for ourselves, the world will respect that. The world respects nations that respect themselves. And then he ends by saying, I've written many times, nobody respects those who have no self-respect. We cannot remain quiet. We can't just be neutral and stand on the sidelines. We shall not be silent anymore. We must raise our voices for the sake of Zion. Shalom.